I know. We've checked out a lot of Supreme Isthmus lately, but this one definitely caught my eye. So bear with me today as we take a look at everybody's most popularly played map. Supreme Isthmus today going to be played by a couple of pro-level players that are going to be showing us how the pros take Supreme Isthmus all the way into the late game. Yeah, certainly the length of this replay caught my eye, and the high power level, the skill level. That sounds like an anime thing, right? The power level of these commanders is over 9,000. Yeah, the the commanders here going to be showing us a whole bunch of skill. So today, spawning in the backline as an Armada commander, spawning in the air position, interestingly enough, it's our red team leader who goes by the name of K-Corp. K-Corp hailing at 49 open skill, well and away into that professional level, and almost just barely out of the 50s right there. K-Corp going to be showing us exactly what they've got here as an Armada Air player. Now this is an interesting choice because obviously Armada Air does not have access to shurikens, the usual tech that we see air players investing in early on, and oftentimes it's not surprising to see commanders going for Cortex and then switching into Armada for those T2 airplanes later on. K-Corp apparently just raw dogging it straight into some good old-fashioned T1 Armada Air. Should be interesting to see what we can get done. All the way on the other side of the map, spawning in the same position, and also spawning as an Armada commander going into air. Wonder if there's some meta or something that I'm just not aware of. It's going to be X-Thron. X-Thron hailing at 39 open skill, so exactly 10 open skill behind the top player of the red team. But certainly with silver chevrons here, the experience differential is going to be basically negligible here. Once you get into these higher levels, the OS difference can mean less and less, right? I feel like the difference between a 20 open skill person and a 10 open skill person is a lot different than, say, for instance, a 49 and a 39. For sure, I'm going to expect a little bit more out of the red team leader, but suffice it to say, X-Tron going to be more than competent here as we hand out a couple of transports. Now, I didn't look at the lobby settings, but we should be able to tell relatively soon how we're feeling about transports right now. Looks like the Hot Pink Commander has requested a transport as well. We may have slow transports enabled. We may also just have regular transports enabled. There's I guess it's like a poll almost. You don't really get to vote, but you get to try out different configurations that you might like. And they all revolve around having commanders in transports and whether that should be allowed, whether that should be disabled, whether that should be nerfed. I think one too many people have been, barraged by commander drops and have decided maybe this isn't the way that we want the game to go. It's one of those awesome things about this game is you essentially just as a participant in the community get to have a voice on the direction that this game takes. I can't think of any other game that I've ever had so much influence on just being a player in the game. Beautiful Red Scout right here from K-Corp. Wonderfully done. Taking a peek around the entire map right here. Scouts most of the players. Looks like about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the commanders so far. Semi-intuitively, that does give you a perspective on where the other two commanders are going to be because, of course, Kuro Yakisora, the powder blue commander, is going to be fighting on the front line, so that commander is revealed, leaving only the Ballad Eater, the purple commander here, to be in this spot right now. Little idle res spot right there. What has the blue team seen is my next question. Have we gotten a scout off? We certainly have. Nicely done with the scout plane right here from the blue commander. X-Thron getting that spy plane across the map here and using it to take a peek into the enemy backline and seeing exactly what's going on. So the situation has revealed itself. What the blue team is seeing here is that the second best commander is going to be on the tech position. We should expect to see T2 tech very rapidly, but we have weaker commanders on front. So what that might signal for the blue players is that maybe they can apply a little more pressure and try and win this front line early. Rage and Kuro Yukisora. Man, I'm gonna have to slow down on my pronunciation on that every time. But Rage and Kuro Yukisora, the powder blue and seafoam green commanders, not at the bottom of the skill bracket here for the blue team, but certainly a little lower on the brackets here. I guess it's kind of even. Yeah, Blue Frost and who is that right here? The tan commander. That's gonna be, or pardon me, Blue Frost and Flask. So yeah, front line's roughly even. It's going to come down to which team manages to get their tech and get their air out a little bit faster. And Avaris transporting the commander. Oh, we definitely have the slow transported commanders on. Yeah, look how slowly that commander is moving across. It's a heavy load for that T1 transport, just barely able to get that commander off the ground, but able to nonetheless. Interestingly, we're going to be going for Armada boats over here. We're going for a submarine off rip. I don't hate the submarine here. I think it probably can find some value. There we go. The gunboat will be blasted down right now. We're also using the transport to lift a couple of construction turrets and bring them on over here. That's a cheeky little play, but I like that quite a lot. Yeah, you have your build power, you have the bot lab, all that sort of stuff. Eat it up and go for the the naval lab over here. But then, of course, you can also move the build power over. Yeah, I think that plays quite nice, actually. That's an anti-air boat, so moving this commander around does feel a little bit risky, but with the submarine out and ready to harass right here, I think this is nicely played from the Cyan Commander going to be trying mostly to just defend and keep themselves in the game so far. The Green Commander trying to use a little bit of missile boat shenanigans to keep RTS Major out of the water here, but looks like RTS Major has established himself quite nicely. Not so powerful of a forward base right here as you might see out, or as we have seen out of the Cyan Commander. Not real. We do have the transport, though. I did see the transport. Yeah, there it is. And we have the construction turret. So moving this con turret over here would basically mean we're essentially in a mirrored matchup. So an Armada submarine headed across the map right now for RTS Major. Going to be going up against Cortex boats right here. It's a mirrored matchup on the northern and southern seas. We're about ready for T2. That's what that explosion was off to the side. Oh, but we aren't going T2. Interesting choice right here from Usurper, the yellow commander here on the red team, deciding instead of going for that very common tech transition to instead go ahead and prioritize a couple of hovercraft. This is interesting. Hovercraft run-bys have certainly been deadly in the past, and I'd be curious to see how much value you can get with them here. There's some LLTs already set up for the Cyan Commander Not Real. These LLTs should be sufficient to defend against a couple of Seeker, but there are quite a few coming across. If they're not balled up, they're not really going to be able to do all too much damage on their own. Yeah, LLT's pretty good. Especially in the formation that they're in right now. If you go right through the middle of these, they're going to get that flanking bonus. That can be a real big problem. Looks like the yellow commander unaware or unsure perhaps about exactly how they want to take this advantage. Looks like they're also overflowing metal right now and will be eventually transitioning into T2 vehicles. So that's an interesting choice right there. Obviously, it still allows you to make that T2 transition, and this hovercraft platform is 900 metal that you can dump into this T2 lab right here. All said and done, I don't think this is the end of the world. It's an interesting way to try and get a little bit of aggression in before you get those T2 up on the line. On a map that's well figured out, it might mean the world of difference right here, but game has also got some static defenses set up right here, so it kind of slowed the build order down. Interesting, very interesting. Both of these teams playing inefficiently, but trying to make the best of it. I like this a little bit better right here from Usurper, though. Putting that metal into units on the field and trying to get value is always going to be a little bit better than trying to build static defenses at home that you really have no guarantee about being able to utilize. Still, though, Commander has not been sacked, and it just barely went down right here for the Lavender Commander, means that that T2 lab will come up with plenty of metal to spare, pumping out T2 Constructors. And indeed, looks like we're going to go into one T2 Constructor and then directly into a Sheldon push. We've seen Mammoth pushes as well, which is another famous one, another popular one. Beautiful run-by with the hovercraft right here. Usurper going to go ahead and send those pesky Seeker across the map. Their rapid-fire heat beam is perfect for dealing with ticks right here, so the ticks that were sent back to try and deal with this, not going to have much effect. Pawns doing much better. E-converters. Oh, E-converters. There we go. E-converters do pop. Chain reacting into a couple of wind turbines and doing a little bit of damage right there to the Seafoam Green Commander as well. Nicely done. I would say that's enough value for those Seekers. So far, we also have the, well, okay, we had the rocket hovercraft firing away here, but it looks like they were struggling against these lightning turrets, and fair enough, those lightning turrets are very dangerous, but enough rockets will bring them down. Rage not tending to the front line with enough build power here, and eventually those lightning turrets goes down, does mean that this is a little bit of a tricky situation for the Seafoam Green Commander, but as long as those beamer turrets are up and running, the Rocketeers, or the Aggravators, pardon me, are going to have to fight a slightly unhappy battle. Fending for their lives here against those beamer turrets that do outrange them means that they can't really efficiently take down this army, and this position will be, at the very least, defensible. It won't be super efficient, but it is working out nicely right here for the Seafoam Green Commander. Just waiting to get those T2 up and running. T2 lab up and running right now from the Yellow Commander, who has got that vehicle bay up and running, so we're going to be seeing a couple of Armada vehicles coming across. Always cool to see the armed vehicles. They definitely have potential. The Starlight is the one that comes to mind as just being the most devastating on the front lines, especially to T1, but even to T2 and even T3, really. It can get immense value, but it has to be escorted in such a careful manner that it can lose that value just as quickly as it can gain it. Not Real repairing as well as capturing metal extractors, and the fight right here is looking quite nice. This is this army looks quite a bit smaller for the Blue Commander, but that is all destroyers, which does mean that they outrange this army in yellow. If this Navy, pardon me, can engage, fall back, engage, fall back, engage, fall back, so on and so forth until eventually they've whittled everything down, this is actually going to be a perfectly fine trade right here for Not Real. The question then becomes, what do you pivot to after that? Because you've already got an entire land-based economy, means you can afford to do cheeky strategies after that. So I wouldn't mind, actually, this is one of the rare occasions where I wouldn't mind seeing a T2 naval transition. Meanwhile, it looks like RTS Major has managed to break out of their alcove, producing units using that single con turret. Really, it's all you need for naval production. Sometimes a single lab can do enough, just the lab on its own. But yeah, a little bit of build power never hurt anybody. Putting a little bit on that lab, since you already have it up and running anyways. Quaker now dismantling this front line. It's exactly what we've been calling for because these beamer turrets have been such a menace. The heavy laser tower blasting things away right here as well, and those Quakers doing a wonderful job of softening up all these targets. Once we have more and more of them on the front line, it's going to be harder and harder for these T1 defenses to keep themselves up and running, but for the time being, the build power here is maintaining this front line very nicely. But there we go. Quaker shots ringing in the ears of those construction turrets, only able to keep up with so much damage at so much, over so much time. And down goes the radar jammer. That radar jammer going down opens up a world of possibilities here, as now the entire world is laid bare in front of the quote-unquote eyes of these machines here. Quaker is going to be more than happy to blast away at all that static defense here, and even the commander is exposed. Wouldn't be surprised if we try to maybe put a couple of shots in against Rage's commander here as well. Always important to remember that these commanders cannot see the enemy commander's HP bar. Only we can see that. That's our privileged, privileged spectator vision. Wow, nice play over here. My goodness. Okay. Talk about an advantage of a blind spot. Eel's managing to sneak around on the northern side, getting behind the laboratory right here of the Green Commander and Avaris, and blasting down the naval lab. Taking out the build power is always nice, but if you can actually bring down the lab, it puts you in a really precarious position, because now all the metal extractors under the sea have been destroyed. All RTS Major has to do is take a couple of semi-decent fights. They don't even really have to be tremendous. And it won't even matter, because all that the Green Commander can do at this point is try and build back into this game. There we go. Submarine spines the constructor that'll be rebuilding the base over here for the Green Commander. Goes for a T2 lab. Not sure if that's the situation that you're going to want to be going for here. There we go. Submarine going to finish the job ever so shortly here. This looks like a sufficient win right now for the Hot Pink Commander. Only it's going to take a minute to clear out the remainder of these forces, but at this point you can even just go for a bunch of dolphins and it wouldn't be the end of the world, right? You're going to lose them all and they're all going to die a devastating death, but at this point it doesn't matter because Antivirus has 0 production remaining. It means that you can afford to be as wasteful as you want as long as it quickly ends the naval reign right there. Sheldon on the front. Sheldon coming in at a whopping 850 range with the Quaker holding 820. Wow, okay, so Quaker's actually outranged by the Sheldon. That's interesting. I always assumed that the Quakers were the longest ranged artillery, but I suppose it's going to be the Sheldon that actually take that crown. It could be the Quakers. Did I say Quakers? The Mauser, pardon me. The Armada Quakers, the Mauser right here, those tri-treaded mobile artillery pieces blasting away at whatever they can. Gauntlet right here are going to be the primary target. I think that's fair. Getting that T1 defense offline is going to be quite nice. It opens up a lot of opportunities right here. And also, we do have 3 gauntlets up and running for Flash 12. Make it 4. My goodness. The Brown Commander just using that T2 economy to go ahead and go for as many gauntlets as they please. Normally, I would condemn this kind of action, but you know what? We've seen it work so many times here. It's hard to say that this is the wrong strategy. It's just a unique one. Yeah, a unique strategy. Torpedo bombers causing havoc over here. Antivirus does have a laboratory up and running once more, trying to produce a construction boat. Not boosting the laboratory, though, so that construction is slowed ever so slightly. Air manages to take down the torpedo bombers right here, and it does mean that RTS Major is on the cusp of winning this naval battle. Meanwhile, the Navy for Not Real has been building slowly but very, very steadily, and now we're up to quite an army of destroyers. It's actually just pure destroyer speeder. Well, EMP bomber comes across. Okay, catches a couple of those destroyers. Anti-air boats are available, but man, their anti-air missiles are pathetic. EMP bomber catches some of those destroyers. They'll be out of the fight here for a little while, and I think, yeah, the Pink Commander is eager to jump on top of them. Still, though, this Navy doesn't look so impressive as all these destroyers do. Yeah, coming to the rescue here, and there's not going to be an opportunity for the Pink Commander to take advantage of those stunned units. Nicely done right there from Not Real. Keeping cool and just keeping the army skating back and forth and making sure that there's no such opportunity for any of these players to find a bunch of value here. Oh, EMP bomber connects once more with that Navy. Torpedo bomber trying to connect over here for the blue forces. The blue commander on the air producing just wind turbines, and my goodness, those look prone to explosion. Apparently not concerned about the explosive potential of the wind turbines in the back, maybe thinking, well, if something explodes in the back line already, all hope is lost. I suppose I can agree with that sentiment only to the extent that sometimes LRPC shots or other random rogue projectiles will end up finding their way into your base, and it can cause such a headache to lose all your wind turbines like that. Not like they matter too much, though. We're already up to a fusion economy, so it's mostly just the wind turbines are a cheap way of continuing to scale, not a necessary one. More and more anti-air. My goodness, 3 or 4 volleys from these skaters right here. That is 9 skaters, and it takes them 2 volleys to bring down one of those T2 torpedo boats. Unbelievable. Once more, the lab has fallen. Naval units out of position right here for Endevar is trying to cut off the reinforcements, which is a good idea, taking those ships out one by one, but losing the naval lab in the meantime means that the Green Commander is knocked out of this fight once and for all. Oh, destroyers trying to get their torpedo launchers to fire away at that commander. 1 or 2 shots later, and boom goes the Green Commander down in the Navy. Just like that, the Hot Pink Commander, RTS Major, has managed to capture victory on the high seas. Still, the Navy of the Green Commander persists, but it shouldn't for very much longer. RTS Major at this point can take as inefficient a fight as they possibly want. Does not matter. Commander in position to be a walking bomb. Looks like we're going to spare the commander, though. Always useful to keep that commander for building metal extractors, of course, but also just the other radars and anti-airs and other useful things that it can build later on. Self-destruct here. Scuttle the boats, cries the Green Commander here, not willing to give an ounce of metal over to the Pink Commander. A sad and an incredible tragedy right there, but certainly the right move. The correct move, but not the fun move, not the happy move. Scuttling the boats prevents a couple thousand metal from going to the hands of RTS Major, so inevitably it is invariably it's the correct decision. It is ultimately going to be what slows down the Pink Commander the most, but it definitely hurts. It hurts to lose all those boats for nothing. Well, we're up to 4 gauntlets, and now we're working on a rattlesnake. You know what could help you pay for this rattlesnake? I mean, you've got plenty of money. It's mostly a build power issue at the moment. It would be these 4 gauntlets over here. 5,000 metal worth of gauntlets, my goodness. EMP bombers connecting over here, by the way. Another volley of EMP bombers connecting with some of the boats over here for the Cyan Commander, but still, unless you can paralyze 90% of that Navy, it's never going to be perfectly efficient to dive on top of it. And with the fact that this Navy is so centered around destroyers rather than frigates, it really doesn't feel like there's going to be any opportunities whatsoever. Yeah, look at this Navy comp. It's just 1 destroyer to 2 skaters with a couple of resurrection subs thrown in to the mix here as well. I guess the idea being the destroyers can kill the frigates, the res subs can steal their frigates, and then the frigates can deal with their destroyers, right? It's kind of a... You're almost planning to succeed with that. I'm always a big fan of that. Planning to fail, never as good as planning to succeed. Radar jammer and a spy bot having a stare down. I want to clip that for a second. I think that's pretty funny. The 2 invisible units staring at each other, wondering what they're about to do. Obviously, they can't see each other here. If we switch to the blue view, you can see they can't see that spy bot, and likewise, the spy bot here not privy to the radar jammer that sits mere inches away from its nose. Ah, the Orange Commander on top of it. Bombing run coming in from the left-hand side. T2 fighters more than happy to clean up these bombers, though. It's mostly wind turbines that they managed to pop. Yeah, geothermal goes down here as well, but that's easy to replace. Resbot already headed up there to resurrect it, and those T2 fighters bring down the green forces quite nicely. So is this a double air play? Yeah, it looks like it sure was. The Green Commander also going into air rather than tech here. I mean, I suppose we're kind of doing both. We've got the APHIS almost finished right here. We've got 3 fusions. It's essentially a tech play using air units rather than T1 units. In a late game situation, it's not really going to make a difference. It is important to distinguish, though, because it means that there's not really going to be T3 units out on the front lines anytime soon for the blue team. Whereas we might expect to see T3 any moment here from the maroon. Anti-nuke coming up very late for an anti-nuke. 18 minutes into a game, if there was a nuke rush, it could have connected across the map already. Luckily for the red team, not the case this game, but I've certainly seen it happen before. Meanwhile, that massive ball of platypus has been built up by the Orange Commander. The support lane commander has been sent across the map to do their good work, blasting down the economies right here of the Lavender and Green Commanders at the same time. Nuclear bombers sent to try and deal with all these, but the anti-nuke backpack missiles that they packed on their backs, backpack, and apparently anti-air is sufficient to bring down that nuclear bomber. Very nicely done. AMX's fall here for the Green Commander as well, and that should be the very last of the units available right now to the Green Commander at large. We do have, actually we have a little bit of an economy starting up in the backline here. Little fusion reactor and some E-converters and all that sort of stuff. Pumping out a couple of units to eventually go resurrect a whole bunch of that, but for the time being, significantly hampered as far as economic investments go. Pipple turret blasting away at the naval units. Definitely a strange interaction there, but it looks like the destroyers actually win this fight. Yeah, there we go. Pipple gets blasted apart. Mr. Worldwide, not so worldwide anymore. And we also have pulsars coming up. Rattlesnake's doing a wonderful job of blasting away at this front line as well. Oftentimes, I feel like this match comes down to two things. The first one to put a Cerberus cannon on their geothermal on the back, and the first one to get sufficient LRPC, MRPC, and regular PC, regular plasma cannons, I don't know. Anyways, the people who get Rattlesnakes, gauntlets, all that sort of stuff up and running first tend to usually have more of an advantage on the front lines here. On a map so centered around such a narrow choke point, it does make a lot of sense, of course. It does oftentimes mean we're locked in this weird kind of stalemate, though. Yeah. Trying to defend against the Navy units and the platypus that are building up for a push over here. All units on deck have been brought over to this side. Platypus coming out of the yellow lab. I think I'd prefer to see ducks. If we were going to go ahead and go for a naval incursion. Platypus are fine for if you've already won the Navy. I think that's why it's such a great move on that northern side. A nuclear bomber coming in, though. Bombs away, and multiple of those destroyers go down. The nuclear bomber, I believe it's 2,200 metal to take out three or so destroyers. Yeah, it's about an even trade, actually. That actually means that might be a fairly sufficient counter to naval units just going into those nuclear bombers. We've seen them time and time again in the higher level lobbies. It seems like it's becoming much more common. Not Real's commander, by the way, in a little bit of trouble here. Always a little bit worried when one of those, always a little bit worried when one of those commanders gets overexposed on the naval field. I've talked about this before, how much of a advantage that extra 1,000 metal can be. That's an extra 1 destroyer, maybe 2 frigates, and it adds up. It adds up very quickly. Maybe not at this point, where already we're up to multiple destroyers per side, but certainly in the early game, it can mean the world of difference. Waiting to see whether this naval engagement will proceed or not. Both players tiptoeing around themselves. These oppressors can destroy. Oh, a little bit of a pause right there. These oppressors can destroy the Corsair quite quickly. I think we're at that snowbally point right now where these would be able to blast down the destroyers in a single volley if all the shots connect. Unlikely, however, that all the shots connect. So practically speaking, we're not quite there yet. Pulsar here having a rough time tracking all the different targets available as well, trying to blast down whatever he can. Frankly speaking, though, there's not any premier targets to make use of. We do have Twilights up and running. That's an interesting unit. So 200 metal and 1,500 energy gets you a cloaked, stealthy metal extractor. It means it's undetectable except for slamming your nose into it. Oftentimes, that's the way that we see them used, is actually more like an EMP landmine. You can basically put them on metal extractors, and then when the enemy moves forces over them, they'll accidentally kill it. And once they kill it, it means that they detonate the EMP bomb hidden inside. Let's see if I hit the X. Oh, it won't show the little EMP radius. Well, anyways, in this radius around it, it'll detonate a EMP bomb, and it'll actually do a bunch of damage. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The Armada Commander going for a whole bunch of pincer here. I'm not sure if I approve of the pincer. I think maybe going into the turtles might be a worthwhile investment. Turtles, 750 metal, which compared to, say, for instance, something like a salamander, which is, I believe, 500 metal apiece, or close to it. You do get quite a sturdy unit for the cost. Something like a bull going to cost you 950 metal, so slightly cheaper than that, but also slightly less firepower. Actually, significantly less firepower. Missile boats here, going to start barraging the coastline now. No reason these shouldn't be taking out any of the scraps that they're within reach of. Essentially, if they get up along this coastline, they could reach this entire base here for the purple and seafoam green commanders. Lavender and seafoam green commanders, pardon me. Brightworks learns colors, part, I don't know, 100, 200? No, it's got to be over a couple hundred, right? It's got to be 600? How many videos have I put out? I bet somebody could check. Yeah, it's probably under the, if you go to the playlist and go to the barcast, it's got to be over 600, right? I've been doing this over 2 years. Or just about. Yeah, I think it's been 2 years. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun, huh? I'd love to see, maybe I'll make maybe that'd be a fun video idea. Take a compilation of the old cast and some of the old mechanics that have changed over time. Find some of the old models for units, like the salamander. It's changed from the alligator to the salamander. Little details like that nobody really thinks about right now, but would be kind of funny to see. Anyway, side tangents well aside, the Red Commander making big plays here, EMP bombing as many of these units as possible. Loads of these boats are EMP'd. I'm not sure what's going on with the graphic right now. It looks like that EMP graphic isn't working properly, because those should be well indicated that they're EMP'd, but it's actually kind of hard to tell with them just sitting still but not actually having any visual change. Maybe that's a bug, like a lobby or UI bug or something like that, but anyways. Blue boats are EMP'd, and that's the thing that matters. The Red Commander coming in with any more reinforcements? We do have another EMP bomber headed on the way. Marauders, though, under the waves. That's what this Navy is here for. Positioning so that it's not scouted early. The Marauders are finally spotted by the submarines. EMP bomber's going to want to be spared for this. EMP bomber goes down, but I think we're probably going to have wanted to use that on these Marauder instead. And out pop. Wow, quite a few Marauder, too. 15 Marauder headed up the beachheads towards the yellow base and the tan base. Making their way downtown, blasting fast. Faces pass, and they are eco-bound. Pipple's here trying their very best. Pipple's actually doing a decent job, yeah. Pipple's not the worst defense against Marauder, but it is sufficient to say that the Marauder are quick enough, oftentimes and at certain distances, to outrun the Pipple's projectile. It can mean that with proper micro, they can be really difficult to deal with. Abductors pumped out here now to try and shut these down. I like that play a lot. The Abductor are quite nice. I think you want to supplement them with Shuriken, though. Shuriken are great for keeping things paralyzed. Abductors are great for making things paralyzed. The difference being that it takes very little, basically no EMP to maintain the paralyzed status, but it does take quite a lot to build up to that status. Ah, there we go. Abductors paralyzing a whole bunch of this, meaning that Flash 12 should be able to get some D-guns on a lot of these. If you got EMP units, EMPing things, though, there's no reason you couldn't go for a capture command, especially if you have a T2 bot lab and you can make those decoy commanders. Those are one of the few units you can actually make. In fact, I think they're the only unit you can make that actually can manage to capture things. Yeah, I'm racking my brain right now. The only other thing that comes to mind is some of the units. Ooh, looks like the player left from the naval field, handing all this over to the Red Commander. That's a massive burden to hand over to your air player here, but anyways. Yeah, maybe the Yellow Commander would step into the Navy after this battle is finished. It looks like the Red Commander will actually come out on top. Those Seekers are causing a lot of problems, or Skaters, pardon me. But largely the Navy is intact right here for the Red Commander, and my goodness, what a wreckage field. What a crazy, crazy battlefield to leave behind this much wreckage, all floating to the bottom of the ocean here. If we turn on our metal vision for a second, 23,000, nearly 20, well, there's 24, 24.3 thousand metal worth of boats left on the bottom of the ocean floor. My goodness. Obviously, a tremendous boon to whosoever should manage to reclaim all that, and it looks like for the time being, it's gonna be not real. Now, a lot of that is just overflowing to the team, but that's not really a problem. As long as that metal's going somewhere in the blue economy, it's not the worst thing. Especially with those Marauders having popped out and being able to do a little bit of damage, sending that back to your eco player in the backline wouldn't be the worst thing ever. Ducks under the seas right here. Ducks only powerful in mass and under the waves here. If the Ducks are essentially anything but those two conditions, they're not actually very good at all. Their on-land attack is mediocre at best. Very, very subpar, I would say. It's they're essentially meant as a naval unit. Yeah, they're not really cut out for that land-based skirmishing. They just have the ability to. Paladin blasting away at a Marauder over here that happened to stray just a little too far forward. Will they get it? Just barely not. Oh, with the final shot from that destroyer, the Dreadnought battleship managed to actually catch that Marauder on the tail end there, bringing it down. One Marauder, not really the end of the world here, but obviously it's nice. Forward T2 lab, gonna build a capital ship. All right. Now this is a 17,000 metal investment for essentially something that could kill a couple of bases that are already dead. What it does give you, though, is strategic control over the midsection of the map, because this can sit outside of range of any of these defenses in the center and blast away at basically all of them. That is often an advantage hard to overstate. More and more naval units coming up right here. Yellow Commander pumping out the naval units with a bunch of shared build power. I would love to see maybe a couple more turrets built and handed over to the Red Commander. We do have this whole air situation building in the backline, though, too. So now micromanaging multiple different economies, or multiple different units, rather. Multiple different types of units, multiple different tech paths, I guess you could say. Very, very difficult to do. If anybody's going to do it, though, it's going to be the red team leader. Their highest skill player, quote-unquote. I always feel weird saying that, right? Because open skill doesn't reflect everything, right? You can go on a winning streak, just a lucky streak, and end up gaining plus or minus 10 open skill at a weekend. A little bit of rambunctiousness in the chat here. I like the idea that the blue commander is talking about, though. You can ask Eco for help and not grief me who's helping. Obviously tempers are flared when you're in this sort of a situation, but Underneath all that, there's a golden nugget of truth to it, which is essentially, if you get knocked out of the game, feel free to ask your eco for help, right? Usually they should have a fusion reactor or maybe a couple of wind turbines or something of that like that should be able to be reclaimed or handed over. Something like that to get you back into the game. You can see the Green Commander just equaling like a madman to keep the scaling up to par here. Not the end of the world either. I think this is probably a good idea. I mean, if you've lost your front, there's really nothing you can do, so relying on your backline players to take over that front, well, you just go ahead and scale like a madman to keep up with the eco race. Not really the end of the world. Eventually, you're going to get into those T3 units, so you can make a comeback back into the front lines of the game, but one trap that you can fall into is building too many of those T2, T3 units too early. You have to remember that you're scaling from ground zero to an economy that's essentially been scaling the entire game. It means you have to leverage every single ounce of that exponential growth in order to get there. Front lines have arrived at a semi-stalemate right here. It looks like the Red Commander and the Cyan Commander, who's probably puzzled about not having won that fight right there. There was tons and tons of units, but a lot of them were skaters, and that is the reason why you include those frigates. Their durability mixed with their firepower means that they can oftentimes win those brawls, and I do believe it's why the, well, now red army, I believe it was pink before. Yeah, the powder pink, but now red navy was able to actually win that fight is because despite not having as many destroyers, they had quite a few more frigates. Massive air pull here by the maroon and red forces to take out all of the T2 air right there from the blue commander, meaning, of course, that a bombing run should be well on its way. Yeah, fighter production starts up from the green commander and the blue commander, both realizing, hey, wait a second, we just lost every one of our fighters out there on the seas. We need to be extremely careful about how we take these air engagements. Using those units for a little bit of defense, not the worst idea. This fight went well here for the Cyan Commander, not real. Going to be going ahead and eating up a whole bunch of that metal. We can also see a resurrect, but at this point I really don't think it's worth it. Rezzing those units is just too slow. Producing more units is going to be where it's at. Continuing to scale the economy, by the way. The Cyan Commander is up to almost 300 metal per second. Could easily be going into T2, but apparently has lost track of that. With 8,000, 9,000 metal in the bank, it certainly would be worthwhile to go for T2. You can bang out that transition in just a couple of moments here, as long as you have the E-storage and the metal storage, and obviously, with Isthmus up and running, you're going to have both. I guess it's not technically true. You might not have the metal storage, but certainly going to have quite a lot of E-storage. And there we go. This is what 300 metal per second in the Navy buys you. A disastrous amount of units on the field. Here comes a destroyer. Battleship, pardon me. T2 heavy firepower. Gonna start shelling away at any of this that it can see anyways. Not a lot of vision in this composition anymore. We need either radars or, well, we have the gunboats here, I suppose, providing a little bit of vision. Anti-air ships to assist the air player wouldn't be the worst thing either, but obviously we just got that T2 tech up and online. It's gonna be important that we try and, yeah, get as much value out of it as possible. The battleship, apparently, what we're opting for. As we've seen time and time again, though, the T2 battleships are not a replacement for T1 destroyers, or at the very least, they don't wholeheartedly counter them. They're better in virtually every respect, but more stuff beats less stuff, as the age-old RTS adage goes. EMP bombers here trying to help out however they can. Taking down those skaters is nice. The destroyers are really the core firepower here, though. Gauss cannon's having a hard time lining up a shots. There we go. EMP does connect with a bunch more of those destroyers, but the boat has gone down. Brutal connection right there. Is just like that. The yeah, red player is forced to accept that they no longer have that lab. Construction starts up immediately on a lab on the side in order to try and keep things nice and clear here. RTS Major going ahead for a little bit of a land incursion. Going to be stopped by a bunch of Fiends sprinting forward. Fiends should be able to clean up this build power here as well if they manage to. Obviously, that'd be ideal. If not, otherwise, it's not the worst thing in the world. There they go. Concentrating their heat beams, their heat throwers, their flame blasters onto the build power there and blasting it to smithereens. Frontline has completely stalled out, by the way. Haven't warped back to the front line here in just a second, but it has essentially devolved into dog warfare. No man's land. This is about as difficult to penetrate as it gets. You've got pulsars, you've got rattlesnakes, you've got pit bulls, you've got every kind of defense and some more. So we'll go ahead and keep our eyes locked on the naval battle here. It's just a mass of air fighters. Gunships in the air are actually quite nice. I feel like gunships make a lot of sense because, of course, they offer you a little bit more precise damage control, so you can take out key targets, like, for instance, the anti-air here. But with those EMP bombers, you afford yourself quite a lot of time as well. Now I've got tumbleweeds coming across, though. I love this idea. The tumbleweed's coming forward here from Not Real, who's apparently been spamming them out of some sort of laboratory. I'm not sure exactly where. But anyways, oh no, it was the purple commander handed them off to the cyan commander here. That's pretty hilarious. Tumbleweeds on land, very, very poor. Tumbleweeds on the water, very good. Air superiority has been well won. Certainly the red team is now vastly in control of the air as opposed to the blue. We're just trying to build up their fighters, trying to build up more forces. Going into anti-air trucks, I like that play quite a lot. Hold my weed, trying to get those anti-air trucks out on the field here, trying to disperse them across this team. You can see those trucks heading on out in every single direction. Yeah, you can see a bunch of them already being spread out all over the place, handed over to different commanders. I love it. One of my personal favorite ways to play air support, not as the air player, but as the supporting air player, is, yeah, to just go ahead and go for a couple of those flag trucks. In fact, a massive amount of those flag trucks. They're not really very expensive, all things considered. I think they're about 460 metal, I want to say. Nuke stopped in its tracks, by the way. Popped midair. Let's go ahead and check. Oh, it's been eaten up. Never mind. Where's one of your trucks? There you are. 450 peanuts for an anti-air vehicle, and you can build 2 of them for the cost of a single flak turret. Obviously, the turrets perform a little bit better, but I'm pretty sure most commanders are going to be more than happy with any kind of flak power. The trucks also fire relatively quickly, so it's not like they're slow by any means. Just slower. Amphibious complex is going to be built right here to build a Titan. Trying to build up some of those late game T3 bad boys. Send them across the map right here with a essentially wiped out economy from that bombing run earlier. All of the metal coming in right now for the pink commander is just on the high seas. We do have a little bit of E-conversion happening in the background here. At least we're trying to get to that level. Not quite committed to building that late game eco though. Instead, it's going to be Marauder headed out across the lab here, or across the map here, and I think that's definitely the right choice. Can this build Marauder? Yeah, it can. Okay, so Marauder coming out of that amphibious lab, going to be perfect for penetrating into this base right here, blasting down those shields, and allowing the capital ship to actually fire away at this base over here. Abductor's having a field day shutting all this down, but at the very least, those do still provide their vision. Vision circuits unparalyzable. Maybe they should be. Maybe you should lose vision when you paralyze something. Oh. A couple of gunboats find the minefields, the medium minefields that have been laid out right here by the Cyan Commander for quite some time. The Cyan Commander's still in the game, though. Yeah, okay, we're going for a capital ship outright. I mean, with 31,000 metal in the bank, I suppose it's well worth it. We could also go for more build power here. Yeah, we're a little lacking. Those deflected shots. Hey, what was I talking about earlier about deflected plasma shots headed into the into the back line? They can definitely be a huge problem. Those are torpedo bombers. Trying to find whatever value they can. Oh, they're so insidious. They can launch their torpedoes from so far away. It means they can actually get a massive range boost if they're microed properly. Just like that. Oh, look out. Oh my goodness. That boat reduced to atoms for a mere moment right there. Gosh, torpedo bombers are so dangerous when they're microed properly. So it's tricky because you have to target the lab. You can't actually just target the water underneath. They'll just target, basically they'll target the ground underneath the lab, not the actual lab itself. Little bit of mismicro there, but at the very least, the bombers do manage to connect some of those torpedoes. Wow, a lot of those torpedoes with the capital ship. Losing them to some of the fighters here, but still a huge number. We are up to a grand 16 torpedo bombers still. But now the despots are outside of the T2 laboratory here, blasting away at what remains of this purple lab. The Dreadnought battleship will be blasted down here as well. Both of them. And that, of course, means that these despots are going to have a wonderful time. Capital ship was out and produced right here by the Cyan Commander, but it's really the only big boat in this composition. We've got destroyers here as well, but the despots are more than happy to blast down either of these. And it looks like the red player has managed to, with vast air support, it's well worth noting, with vast air support has managed to, I mean, part of it's their own air support, right? But the Maroon Commander coming in with those torpedo bombers is lovely. Manages to take over the Navy field here and is going to start laying down the hurt on that capital ship. And, of course, as a byproduct, all the rest of the boats in a vicinity. There go those Despots firing with their anti-material lasers. Able to phase through any object, apparently. Still shaking my fist in the air about Cortex discovering X-ray technology. The ability to penetrate through any amount of defenses. Firing directly through the holes of a ship and into the enemy's face. But I can't complain too much because Armada gets a lot of guns. And if there's one thing that I like at the end of the day, it's gonna be having a lot more DACA than the enemy team does. There we go. Officially winning this fight at the long-awaited moment 39 of this very, very late game battle. Should I have warned about getting a snack? Maybe I should have. Anti-nuke boat here as well, providing tons of vision, but also, of course, covering from any sort of nuclear strike. Yeah, torpedo bomber's gonna really struggle next to the land here. That's kind of counterintuitive because as these boats sit closer and closer to the land, the torpedo bombers become less and less effective. It's kind of a weird catch-22. Not a catch-22, it's just a paradox. You'd expect the enemy getting closer means that your bombers are more effective because they don't have to travel as far, but they lose effectiveness steeply around land. Petition to make torpedo bombers bounce off of land so they maybe have a shot of getting into the water. Probably not necessary with how overpowered they are already. Abductors here being used is interesting though. Yeah, those actually have a powerful enough EMP beam that they can actually connect with some of these and do some serious damage. Despots all go down. Submarines coming across the map. Not sure those are going to have much effect here either. And we are building up a massive force on the front line here. Loads of T2, which is surprising, but we've also got, of course, the Ragnarok coming up and running. The rapid-fire, long-range plasma cannon fires, very simply, lots of bullet. Yeah. 1,000 bullet per second. I'm not sure the actual fire rate, but it's very, very fast. And usually only a late game solution here. We've got 3 minutes before this one comes up and running because the Orange Commander is also still producing loads of other stuff. Oftentimes difficult to draw the line between production for a Ragnarok because, yeah, you don't want to leave your team high and dry. But also this Ragnarok is essentially a game ender. It means the blue team is on the clock. More Titans coming up, and I'm surprised to see we aren't using these, yeah. We've got 4 Titans built already. There's a mound of static defense up here on this high ground. My goodness. I love to see that Antivirus is using that tech economy that they built here to just go ahead and pork the ever-living snot out of this high ground here. We've got shields coming up. We've got loads of Scorpion turrets. We've got tons of pulsars queued up as well. This is going to be a nightmare to push through, but if ever there was a static defense, and if ever there was a unit, and if ever there was a time, it was Titans, and it was now. Titans moving, cries the Green Commander. Not so much, although as much as I'd love to see it, it's not the case. I think it's one of those rare occasions where the late game... Whoa. Oh, I thought that was a... I thought that was a... gosh, I thought that was a demon. The T3... I saw a couple of them. There they are. The T3 Flame Spewers, Cortex Flame Spewers. Those things are very powerful, but they lost their ability to travel under the water when they got inserted into the official patch, the main patch. Originally, they were intended as an amphibious unit, essentially like a Marauder. They have since lost that ability, probably for good reason. Or, well, definitely for good reason. And I think it's one of those rare times we're going to go and speed things up. Let's check in on the backline really quickly, though. Not a lot of eco-skilling back here. Huh, you know what? I think I might have liked to see a little more eco-skilling out of the Red Commander. Yeah. Despite winning the naval field, not really able to take advantage of it because we just don't have... Oh, there we go. There's some aphises in the backline. Okay. So at the very least, the energy is scaled up quite nicely here, but we certainly could stand to expand it a little bit more. There's a big open area right here that somebody should be eager to claim. Certainly the Maroon Commander would do well to build some more E production with loads of E converters unutilized. Just more and more APHIS right now wouldn't be the end of the world. These T2 E converters are great and all, but there's no reason to build them if you've already got the E converters up and running, and you may as well just go ahead and dump the 380 metal or so into a whole bunch of... wow, I just realized a massive take just occurred. I'll explain that in just a second. But you may as well just dump that metal into more energy and then produce metal out of the E-converters. Anyways, the Red Commander, K-Corp taking control of all of the naval units up on the northern side. My goodness. Looks like the commander here on the red team. Right? Oh, no. Pardon me. Nobody dropped. Might have just been a case of lagging behind and not able to take, or not able to issue commands. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Abductors have to be careful here. Or, pardon me, Titans have to be careful here. Abductors can EMP Titans. It takes quite a lot of them, and they really should be focusing on one Titan at a time. But it's still very scary. Yeah, okay. Luckily for those Titans, there wasn't enough Abductors to paralyze them one by one. just barely managing to make it out of there. Here we go. Here come the abductors. One of them paralyzed, another one on the docket as well. EMP beams connecting. And just like that, the Titans are paralyzed. We need air support. We need it yesteryear. No movements from the Maroon Commander. These Titans are on their own. Oh, no. A whopping 54,000 metal. Well, a little more than that, too. We just lost a couple of the Titans, or one of the Titans. Right down the drain as a couple of those abductors do manage to paralyze these bad boys on land, stealing that metal from the red team. What an unfortunate moment right there. Yikes. Not enough anti-air to keep all this safe. I wonder if about a million Marauder would have done any better, just having more mass, more volume, and more anti-air capabilities. Certainly seems like it might be the case. Ragnarok is completed, though. Starting to fire away into the back line. Here we go. A couple of those plasma shots ricocheting into the back. Always what we're scared about. The Green Commander trying to continue scaling that economy, but you got to be so careful. I'd love to see a couple of shields injected here and there to make sure things are deflected when they do bounce back in that direction. Looks like the Maroon Commander has handed over all the air forces as well. Suddenly this has turned into K-Corp versus the blue team. Adopting plenty of forces here to make it all worth it, I suppose. Bombers coming across. AA trucks doing their very best. Firing away at all those bombers, as many as they can, but they blot out the sky, the amount of bombers that we have headed directly towards the Cyan economy, and boom go the aphices. Down goes hundreds and thousands of metal and energy production right there for not real. Loses it all in a swift bombing run right there from the Red Commander. Basically the entire team's worth of air units bombing out of existence any semblance of economy here for the Cyan Commander. This means that this is a desperate last throw, but desperate may be the wrong word here. That is a, wow, a grand 19 Titans that have been produced and are heading on over across the map. If these aren't dealt with, they can certainly be a tremendous issue. Torpedo bombers, certainly one way to deal with those. Actually, I don't mind that one bit. Torpedo bombers, we've all seen just how much damage they can do, but also just the fact that every one of their bombs that they drop connects. It means that they're going to be in a great position here. Oh, okay, well. We're attempting to keep up with the red team, apparently, by just handing over more and more units. That's all of these bases, the purple and the cyan, handed over to the blue commander, who's now in charge of them. Ragnarok's still working away at this base over here. How far can this thing fire? Looks like it's about at its range right there. It means that it won't actually be able to pierce the inner depths of that blue base. Definitely unfortunate. Here are the Titans. The March of the Titans. How are we going to resolve this issue? With the Titans marching forward, really the only efficient solution that exists is a commander with a couple of D-guns. If, for instance, we could D-gun maybe half of these, I would say it's probably a fairly efficient fight, a fairly efficient trade. Track on these. Nuclear bombers, that's a good idea too. Nuclear bombers and regular bombers coming in to try and connect with a bunch of these Titans, but then they go stomping their way across the map. They're on a one-way trip directly towards the red economy. Abductors in the sky, trying to shut them down. I love this because it's totally the red commander saying, hey, you know what, you did this to me, why don't I just do it right back to you? Having some issues though. Yeah, you need a lot more abductors than you'd imagine. And there's so many of these Titans available. My goodness, it does look like we've managed to paralyze them though. It only takes one of these Titans to actually bring down the bases just like that, as if enunciating my point. The Titans pop the Tan Commander's rebuild base over here. Likewise, the Orange Commander's base goes down as well. With one concerted effort, the Titans managed to push through the entire front line of the red team here, devastating any hope that the red team had of holding on in this game. Gunships pulled from all sources and hopes and dreams and walks of life to try and desperately deal with these Titans. Maroon Commander also producing Titans, but they need to get into there and into that fight immediately. Titans having a hard time, or pardon me, Abductors having a hard time prioritizing which Titans to go for. Oh, build power gets blasted there as well. Nuclear bombers coming up to try and blast these down. Abductors need to be evenly spread on all these Titans, but they're getting taken apart by the enemy fighters. With all the damage that the Titans on the northern side managed to do here as well, popping bases, the air forces were diminished. And with all that aggression, it all culminates in a walk-by of Titans stomping their way towards the back line of the red team. Yeah, Ragnarok might have been able to do something and maybe to turn around and started firing, but obviously a risk, of course, because you never do know if that Ragnarok's going to overfire and accidentally shoot yourself right in the face. What a determinant end right here to this back-and-forth match between these Titans. Thank you, of industry here, producing hundreds of thousands of metal per second, and eventually getting up to these late-game heroes and devastating the backlines. Well, that's probably the most beautiful thing there ever was to see. The red team now with a single commander remaining. Looks like it's K-Corp out in the high seas, and I do believe it's about time for things to come to their final act here. We'll go ahead and speed things along here as K-Corp wanders aimlessly through the ocean, reveling in the thought of a once mighty empire brought low by the pulsar tachyon beams here mounted atop each of those Titan walkers, those Titan super heavy warbots, as they patrol the rest of the map looking for this one final commander. At this point, the red commander has left the game, a hollow shell of a commander. Instead of ending the game, choosing to resign and leave the task to RTS Major or Flash 12, who probably have set down their controllers and walked away at this point. Usually when these games stall out like this, that's the case. The last person with the last commander resigns, and the other people are just AFK. That's usually how this goes. Looks like it'll be EMP bombers to finally finish the job, and the blue team snatches victory in this game of Beyond All Reason. The Titan Walk ending up winning the game here on the southern side of Supreme Isthmus. What an enthralling game of Beyond All Reason. Back and forth to the T. Both of these teams and all of their commanders vying for control, vying for superiority, and at the end of the day, I gotta say I'm proud of those Titans for managing to do so well on the other side of the map. Lovely, lovely stuff. GG to everybody who played today, and I sure hope that you watching had a fabulous time as well. Thanks a ton, and I will see you in the very next game. We do live streams as well on Tuesdays and Saturdays, 12 to 4 PDT. Also, the bar fight night is going to be a blast. That's a Saturday, and there will be a link to sign up to that down below in the description. Loads of good stuff down there. I definitely recommend checking it out. I will see you in the very next one, and until then, I hope you have a great day, and remember to smile. Peace out, everyone.